Hey guys, welcome back to more HOA stories. In this video, a homeowner association Karen constantly stole my electricity, claiming that she deserves free electricity because I have solar panels. Let's dive right into the video. So I own a home, and in a similar vein to many people, found that my electric bill just seemed to keep getting higher no matter how smart and energy efficient I was trying to be. After about 3 years of contemplation, I decided to pull the trigger and get myself some solar panels. I was lucky that I was able to do so because I was grandfathered into my home and not required to be a part of the HOA. Something that I never ended up doing, which means their rule against solar panels does not even apply to me. Now, solar panels are not cheap by any means, so I will still be paying monthly for them, but in the long run, I think it will end up saving me money. Well, it was not long before I was getting approached by the HOA, but not in the way that you might think. Introducing Karen, the crazy woman who lived next door to me and just so happened to also be on the board for the HOA. I've had many run-ins with her in the past, and I can tell you that even without what is about to be explained, she is a monster of a person. And since it's not the biggest town in the world, most people know about others' lives, so I can shed some light into Karen. So she is divorced and tries to make that her entire personality in hopes to gain pity from people. She talks about how being divorced is so hard and that she struggles while no struggle is ever actually shown. I know that she gets fat alimony checks and spends that money buying herself name brand things and showing them off. She's more shallow than a kiddie pool and everybody knows it. Of course, being on the HOA board, that also gives her some grand sense of being better than others around her and feeling like she is special. Like it was a position she earned via hard work and not just something she got due to the fact that nobody really wants to be on the board. From what I heard, there are 7 board members and there was 0 competition for the positions. She got it just by showing up and putting her name down for it. The one thing I will give to Karen is that she never tried to outright pressure or try to force me to join the HOA. She took the more passive-aggressive approach and just bragged about how she felt so much safer being in one and that I was missing out by not joining. Telling me that without the HOA, I really was not part of the community and would just be the weird guy. Well, that is not true, as I'm friendly with my neighbors aside from Karen, and she seems to be the weird person that people want to avoid. Basically, running into Karen almost guarantees a 10-minute conversation, and I put that in quotes because she talks at people, not to them. And all that just to try and make people feel bad for her and to inflate her own ego, which really should get popped. I had multiple people talk about my solar panels with me once they got installed, and I didn't mind it. I knew that it was an obvious change to my house, and people got curious and wanted to ask me questions. Mostly about the cost and whether I was actually gonna save money or not. Some even asked me about what happens at night when the sun is not around to power the place. I'm going to actually answer that here because it becomes relevant from what Karen says to me. So there is something called power storage from what I get, but solar panels can only go so far. I'm still connected to the electrical grid and will be paying something for electricity, it will just be much less. I did the math and I will save money even with the large cost of installing them. Now back to Karen though, who had been looking at my solar panels for a couple days and I was expecting her to say something, but she didn't. I was curious since she was acting so out of character, so I decided to just keep a close eye and ear out. About a month passed by and I started to notice that my solar energy was being drained faster than it did in the beginning. I was worried that something was wrong with the panels or that I made a mistake and was not gonna save money after all, since now I was back to using a bunch of energy from the grid which I was trying to avoid. A couple days later I saw her with this giant extension cord and waking it right to the side of my house where I knew I had an outlet. I was able to intercept Karen before she did anything and I was honestly very confused. Me, what are you doing? Karen, I was just trying to plug this into your outlet. Me, I can see that, but why? Are you having an outage or something? Karen, no, but the HOA does not allow solar panels and you are clearly taking advantage of the fact that you're not a member by getting them. Me, have you been doing this the whole time? It finally clicked why the energy was draining faster. And by the way guys, I think he should have also asked Karen, has she been drinking? Because that behavior is definitely not normal. Anyway, Karen, I'm less fortunate than you, and you should have offered to share your free power right from the start. Me, well, first of all, it's not free power. I had to pay for the panels and pay for the grid power once it is used up. You should have never done this, especially without asking me first. Karen, it is such like a man to not care about people less fortunate than they are, especially to a woman. You would rather I suffer because I follow rules than help me out. Me, I care about people, but not when they try to go behind my back and steal from me. This stops today, and if I catch you trying to steal my power again, I can and will call the police on you. I left to go to the hardware store and I got a lockbox for my outlet so she couldn't get into it anymore and plug herself in. I knew exactly when she noticed because she threw a fit right at my door when she did so. She started banging and screaming that I had to let her use my power and again trying to gain some type of pity from me, but she was not gonna get it. I let her throw her tantrum, which even included smashing a potted plant on my porch and throwing my outdoor welcome mat into my bushes. Some of you might wonder how I stayed calm the entire time, and the reason was actually pretty simple. So I got a Ring doorbell camera and it caught her entire freakout. Her entire rant too, that included some very colorful language about me. The best part was when she started talking about how she couldn't get solar panels for herself due to the HOA being stupid and having rules that she was forced to follow, claiming that she should be exempt because she was not stupid like the rest of the people in the HOA that need to be given rules for common sense. This video did not stay private for long as I made sure to spread it around on my social media and took extra care to make sure that it ended up in the email of as many neighbors as I possibly could. She became a laughingstock and she only made it worse once she saw what was happening. She was threatening to sue me for defamation of character even though I did not say a word about her. I let the video do all the talking. Still, I was not quite satisfied enough from just people laughing at her and her ego finally getting a little bit of the air drained out of it. I wanted to make it so she couldn't use her excuse of being on the HOA board anymore. I wanted to take that little bit of power she desperately clung to away from her. I sent an email to the HOA board with the video attached. In the email, I told them that if this is how one of their board members was gonna behave, then they were gonna lose respect quickly. Also warning them that if she took any further action against me, such as damaging my property in the name of the HOA, I could go after them in a lawsuit. I had no actual plans to sue the HOA, I just wanted to share the video and let the president know that he might want to save the image of the HOA before it totally fell apart and lost control. It worked and she was promptly kicked out of the board. I think the best part was that even without being on the board, she was still a member and still couldn't try and get solar panels for herself to get free energy. Once she stopped using it, I found the solar panels to mostly handle my energy, with only a bit of the overflow needing to be handled by the grid. I made sure to proudly talk about all the money I'm saving, especially around her, just because I know that it drives her crazy and she cannot do anything about it anymore. She has not tried to destroy my property or do anything like that, she just now cannot get the pity from people that she wants, and instead people whisper about how they now understand why she was probably divorced in the first place. I think that for a Karen, what can hurt more than anything is to lose any kind of power or control they had over people. Not just from her role on the board, but from manipulating people to feel bad for her to get what she wants. Before this, people did feel bad and sometimes give her things or at the very least the attention she wanted. After she tried messing with me though, people were giving her the cold shoulder. I did not beat Karen per se or change the way that she thinks or acts. I just kind of knocked her down so she lost the will to try and play the victim and get away with being so cocky and arrogant. Don't get me wrong, she still has an ego and is still a Karen, but much more easy to swallow than before. I regret nothing. Teaching her a lesson not to mess with me and the world doesn't revolve around her and what she wants. And yeah guys, OP was definitely not the a-hole here. If you teach a lesson to an entitled Karen, I would say that you deserve a medal instead. Either way, the next one is a very interesting Am I the Jerk story that is titled, Am I the a-hole for breaking off my engagement because my fiancé made an offensive joke about me to his friends? And by the way, if you've watched until here, please don't forget to subscribe to not miss any of my future uploads because YouTube likes to screw me over and not show you my new videos. So either way, I, 28 female, and my fiancé, 32 male, have been together for 5 years. For the sake of anonymity, I'll be referring to him as John. John and I have had a wonderful and loving relationship for these past 5 years, and I truly saw myself with him for the rest of my life. We've had our ups and downs, but not once has John ever made me feel like I was not enough. He supported me in all of my endeavors and dreams, and our relationship even survived 9 months of being long distance, as I'd been sent to another state for work in 2021. So this means I truly love John, and even now I still love him, but I have my doubts now about how he feels about me. A little context: I grew up fat. I had been fat when we met, and for the first 3 years of our relationship, I was fat. This is not a problem and never has been in our relationship, but it was something I had a problem with about myself. I wanted to be healthier and to simply lose the weight because I knew it would make me happier. John was supportive of this. He said he would love me no matter what form I took because it was my heart and soul he had fallen for. I had believed that, as I had no reason not to. John has always made me feel that he loves me and made me feel desired. But now I've lost half of what I weighed before, and at my age, and due to being overweight my entire life, I have plenty of loose skin. I'm absolutely insecure about it, and John knows this, and he's made every effort to reassure me that he still finds me beautiful and that he looks at my body as the evidence of how hard I've worked and how far I've come. He reassures me that he still loves being intimate with me and loves my body even as it has changed. I felt so lucky to have a man who loved me so unconditionally and truly. Recently, John and I had gone out with a bunch of our friends as we had not been able to align our schedules until now. So whenever we go out with a big group like this, John and I usually spend the beginning of the evening and the end of the evening together at the party. At some point in the middle, we always split off to go socialize with our friends separately. So when it came time that I went to rejoin John, I had seen him with his best friend and a couple others engaged in conversation. John's back was to me, and his friends were all chuckling about something as I approached. But I stopped dead in my tracks when I heard John tell his best friend that my body looked like a deflated weather balloon and that it was hard for him to not laugh when we were intimate and my body moved. I had never expected the man who spoke so warmly and lovingly to me always to talk about me in such a way. John was the man I was going to spend the rest of my life with. He had known my insecurities and still loved me anyway. At least so I thought. Needless to say, I was hurt and angry and devastated. I walked up to him, handed him his ring without a word, and I left. I didn't even go to our home. I went to a hotel and stayed there. I turned off my phone and just took a couple days to just cry out my heartache. When I turned my phone back on, there were messages and voicemails from John and our friends. Most of John's messages were apologetic, begging me to come talk and come home. But then the most recent were the opposite. He said I was cruel and cold for ignoring him and breaking off the engagement without warning or so much as an explanation. When I responded to him and told him I'd heard what he had said, John told me that I was acting like a child because I took his joke too seriously. That he was just trying to make his friend laugh. I asked him why he needed to make his friend laugh at my expense by telling him about my body and how it looked to him, or how he struggled not to laugh at me when we were intimate. He didn't respond. Instead, as I'm writing this, I'm still receiving messages from our friends telling me that he is sorry and that I should see how miserable he is without me. That I am so cold and a bitch for running off like that instead of giving John a chance to explain himself. I am hurt. I genuinely don't know if I was too rash in breaking off our engagement, but the only thought in my head and what is still sticking with me now is that when I was fat, people mocked me because of my body all the time. I lost the weight only to still have people mock me because of my body, and it just so happened to be the one person I allowed to see me at my most vulnerable who showed me that. I know John is hurting, or at least seems to be, but so am I. Should I have hurt him out? 5 years, and I didn't even give him the chance to explain or to really apologize. I just shut him out immediately. I still love the man, those feelings don't go away overnight, but I don't want to hear his apology. I don't want his explanation. I'm just angry and hurt, and my friends seem to think that I'm throwing away my relationship over something easily fixable. And yeah guys, let me know what you think about this in the comments. Do you think OP acted too rash here, or did she do the right thing? Honestly, if I would have been in OP's shoes, I would have absolutely done the same. That is completely not acceptable. However, I would have also cut off the friends that said that OP is a bitch. These friends are pretty much worse than enemies. Absolutely despicable. Either way, let me know what you think in the comments, and now we will continue with an update to the story. So, I have left John. I don't intend to go back or try to fix things when it's not my responsibility to do so in the first place, and it's not something that can be fixed anyhow. A lot of you said it would be hard to forget that he had said that, and you're right. I saw him once just to move my things out with the help of my brother, truly my hero in all of this, and despite the apologies and begging for me not to go, all I could hear was his joke and the way he laughed when he said it. It was like it was all I would ever hear from his mouth, no matter what he actually said. I told him that if he actually loved me, he would have never treated me like a joke, and that was the last thing I said to him. He has tried calling, but I've blocked his number. I'm staying with my brother, and John's been smart enough to not come by, because my brother told him if he walked onto his property, the only way he would be leaving is in handcuffs or a bag. John seemed damn intimidated by that, thankfully, so I feel safe. Going forward, I know I'll be okay. I'm gonna take time to focus on myself, move and work towards my own goals. I think it'll be a good way to let go of this relationship and what could have been by reminding myself of who I am outside of it. Thank you again. And yeah guys, honestly, big respect to OP for dodging this huge bullet. The next one is an Am I the A-hole story. I was out for lunch with my 5-month-old son and he needed to be changed. I went to the restroom, but I found the men's did not have a changing table, so I went to the women's restroom. I walked in there and there were some hushed whispers from a couple women. Wouldn't have guessed it was about me if it weren't for what happened next. But everyone else just went about their business. I was sorting through the diaper bag, getting everything I needed ready to go, when a restaurant hostess approached me and said, "Oh, sorry sir, the men's is actually at the other end." I explained that there was no changing table there and she said, "Nevertheless, this is the women's room and your presence is making some of our patrons uncomfortable." I was kind of flummoxed and said, "I'm fully clothed, I'm not peeking under stalls, I just want to change my son and finish my meal." The hostess began to get upset and said, "I understand, but how about your wife comes and changes him?" And I told her that we were there alone. We were starting to attract attention in the restroom at this point, and one of the women said, "I've been there with 4 of my own, I can change him." The hostess seemed to think that was a suitable compromise, but I wasn't comfortable leaving my baby alone with a stranger to change him. I said this, and another woman who I think is one of the ones who complained said, "Then go home and change him at home, or lay your changing pad on a counter surface in the men's bathroom." A woman with her added, "Cisgender men are not entitled to violate our space this way. You're making people uncomfortable. You need to respect that." This was the first quiet meal out I had had since he was born, so I just ignored her and started to change him. The hostess got the manager, a man, who called from the door that I needed to leave, but I was not about to drive my baby home in a soiled diaper though, so I finished up. So yeah, Ripe Stars, let me know in the comments whether you think OP is in the wrong here or not. Let me tell you, the comments on Reddit were very split on this issue. There was not one, "Oh, everybody's the a-hole here, this guy's the a-hole, he's not an a-hole," or whatever. Pretty much every single comment was different. So comment number 1 says, "So everyone sucks here, but only because you did not announce yourself/intentions before entering the ladies' room. A quick, anyone in here? I'm sorry, but the men's room has no changing table and I need to change my son's diaper." Would have gone a long way into putting people on your side. The restaurant is definitely the a-hole for not having changing tables in both bathrooms, and that cisgendered comment is absolute BS and unnecessary. Comment number 2, the sexist world we live in. It's truly insane that there are no changing stations in most men's bathrooms. I could go in forever about this, but I will save it. You're welcome. Unfortunately, you are the a-hole here. You cannot just go into a woman's restroom when they have asked you not to. The appropriate thing would have been to change the diaper on the front counter in front of everyone working there to prove a point about how they need to change their layout. Comment number 3, not the a-hole. If the people are so uncomfortable with your presence, then they should have just have the hostess be with you for an extra second while you do it. You're being a good dad, keep at it. Also, might be worth it to write into the management about there not being a changing table in the men's bathroom. They are not expensive and are reasonably easy to install. And before we end the video, we will read a funny story from r/malicious compliance that is brand new. It starts like this. So at my previous job, we had a really strict expense reimbursement policy. This meant that only expenses with receipts were reimbursed and no exceptions. Absolutely no exceptions, I want to make that clear. Then one time I was traveling for work and I had a few small expenses here and there, something like bus fares, street parking, tipping, something like that, where getting a receipt was impossible. I'm sure you know this. Well, I submitted a report to tell them, clearly listing these minor charges totaling about $19. It got rejected. My manager said, "No receipt, no reimbursement, policy is policy. We need every receipt for audit purposes. We must follow the rules." Well, I said to myself, fine, cue the malicious compliance. The next trip I went all in. I needed a bottle of water or some food. I bought it from a fancy cafe with a printed receipt. I got a short taxi ride, no cash, only expensive app-based rides with e-receipts. I did not use public transport, but instead I took the more expensive options that provided invoices. When it came to tipping servers, well, no cash, I added it to the bill at high-end restaurants with detailed receipts. All in all, my total expenses, you're asking? It was $280 instead of the previous $19. When the finance department processed my claim, my manager was absolutely furious. Why is this so high? I said, well, you said no receipts, no reimbursement, so I made sure everything had a receipt. Then a new policy got introduced at my company the following week. It said, reasonable expenses may be reimbursed at management's discretion, even without receipts. And yeah guys, thank you for watching, please post some star emojis in the comments and I will see you again tomorrow.